Hey guys, Spencer here from the editing room. Just a little bit of a heads up. Gabe was having some trouble with his internet in this episode, and so some of his dialogue is a little bit choppy. So just keep that in mind as you're watching this. I'm sorry about that, but you can usually kind of piece together what he's saying, so it shouldn't make too much of a difference, but I do apologize in advance. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Roadside Cooking with Rezkin, where we eat fire roasted squirrel live on camera. Wait. Nope, the producers are saying that this isn't that episode. No, you guys are watching the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer, Gabe, and Chris. And today we are talking about the extremely anticipated Mage of No Renown by Kelcade, which is the Wesson prequel story in the King's Dark Tidings series. If you enjoy this content, please pelvic thrust those dirty like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon to get notified when we put out new content. Also, remember that for every time you hit the aforementioned buttons is another 30 minutes of sunlight that I allow Gabe to have before I lock him back in my basement and force him to create content for this channel. So do the right thing.
Please.
Please. You can also follow us on Twitter for fantasy and sci-fi recommendations, catch up on what we're reading currently, and vote on whether or not I should feed Gabe today. Our handle is @FilesFantasy. A little announcement. This week, Gabe and I will be on the Fiction Fans podcast talking about the first book in the Dark Tower series. So be sure to check out their website. I'll link it below if you'd like to hear our wonderful voices on their podcast. I'm not sure when they'll be posting that, but I would guess that it would be within the next week or so of this being posted, because I'm going to try to get this episode out as quickly as possible. So keep an eye out for that. Also in July, we'll be having Chris McGrath on an episode who does the cover art for King's Dark Tidings, all of the art behind us in these panels, as well as other books like Dresden Files and Mistborn. So keep an eye out for that as well. We're super excited about it. We'll let you guys know ahead of time on Twitter when that will go up as well. And with all that out of the way, let's talk about what we've been reading lately.
Go ahead, Gabe. Right. So I recently read, this was, I think, after my first read of this book, The Mage of No Renown. It's called it's basically two short stories by Kevin Hearn. It's based in the Iron Druid Chronicles world. They were really good. They were maybe 30 minutes each, and it was kind of just a fun read. I finished The Hand That Cast the Bone finally by Holly Tinsley, our wonderful friend.
What'd you think of the ending? I'm dying to know.
I liked it a lot. I mean, I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
That this battle ended almost, you know what I mean, between him and him. We'll just say that. But it was good, super good. I also finished Lowtown, which is a book that Spencer's been reading that he really likes. Yeah, I needed a reread on it because I think I wasn't as focused as I should be. I got the gist of it, but I definitely that I need to read it one more time. And it was good. I had a lot. Kind of an interesting step away from what I've been, that's genre that I've been reading. So that was fun.
Right.
And yeah, that's it, man. Not very exciting over here.
What about didn't you read?
I read The Warded Man.
With The Warded Man. Yeah. What'd you think of that?
That was an incredible book. That's probably one of my, favorites so far this year. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, is that the one that you're trying to get us to read?
Yeah, the one that he's been saying all the stuff about. It's I was very pleasantly surprised with it. Definitely kind of get why am I gonna forget the name? The series that you connected it to.
Oh, Night Angel.
Yeah, Night Angel trilogy. At least in the way that it was written, like, yeah, I don't know, but it was good.
For sure. Okay, so Chris, what have you been reading?
Well, as you guys know about me, I don't juggle multiple books too well. So I pretty much dropped everything I was reading to finish Mage of No Renown in the allotted time, in the time frame I was dictated, and
the 3 days you had to read the whole thing.
Yeah, but I did it. I got through it. Which I was glad about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and actually, that trip that I went on, I remember I told you I went on that trip for the weekend. That actually helped a lot because there's a lot of driving. So I was
for sure.
I had that going the whole time, and
that's
Leavenworth's like a solid 5 hours, isn't it? 6 maybe.
Not from where he's at.
2 for me, man.
Yeah, because he's way up north.
Because I'm like
for
4
for you though. For you though, it's a while. Yeah, all the way over in Bremerton there, Bremertron. But yeah,
Bremertron.
Yeah. For me, it's only like 2.
I was wondering if you'd be getting a lot of reading in during that, because I'm like, he's probably like hiking and walking around Leavenworth and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, well, I was doing a lot of bike riding. So like on the climbs up, I'd put my headphones in because all you're doing is working. You're just climbing up on the bike. So I just put the headphones in, with get Mage of No Renown going, and 5 miles later, I'm at the top. I'm like, all right, it wasn't so bad.
Nice.
Yeah. But so before this book, I was reading the book of the New Sun, specifically Shadow and Claw, which is the first half of that tetralogy, is what it's called. But it's 4 books by Gene Wolfe.
Tetralogy, I've never heard of that. I've never heard that term.
That's what he calls it.
Interesting.
The tetralogy chronicles, and tetralogy just is group of 4. I guess.
gotcha.
But yeah, so Shadow and Claw is the first half, so the first 2 books. So the Shadow of the Torture and the Claw
and Shadow, or wait, no, Shadow of the Torture and Claw and Bone or something.
Claw of the Conciliator is.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the second one yet though. I've only made it a little ways through the first book. But I think, as I kind of told you, there's a lot of archaic words that he uses that make it a little bit difficult to get through quickly if you're someone that's bothered by a word that you don't know.
Yeah.
For me, it depends. Like sometimes I can just ignore it, but other times I'm like, I can get what that word means from context, but I've never heard it before, so I want to look up the definition.
Google it. Yep.
Yeah. And so the first couple chapters were pretty bad because I was like, I'd read like 2 sentences and like put the book down, like pick up my phone, like Google. It's like,
yeah.
But then it gets a little better and you start to, live with it. But it's got me intrigued so far. It's it comes across as almost fantasy in the beginning so far. Like there's, torturers and I guess people that fight with swords and axes, and they're talking about citadels, and so it just gives sort of a fantasy vibe as the setting. You wouldn't think sci-fi necessarily, but then there's some sci-fi interjected, like they kind of reference flyers, right, and people visiting from other stars, and so it's kind of like, oh, this is actually sci-fi. So it's kind of I'm sure it'll get more sci-fi as you go along, but it's pretty interesting world so far. I'm kind of intrigued, so I'm gonna try to finish it out.
How far into it are you?
Not very far. Probably just 5 or 6 chapters, and then I switched over to Mage of No Renown to get through that. But then I'm gonna pick this back up right away. So yeah.
Well, we were talking about Kindle a little bit earlier. I don't know if I told you this before, but if you get the Kindle app on like your tablet, or if you get a Kindle or whatever, you can actually like tap on the word and it brings up like a dictionary kind of annotation, like pop-up thing. And so if there's a word you don't know, like diametric or something, and you click on it, this little thing pops up with like the dictionary definition of that.
That alone,
cool.
Alone could be worth a Kindle.
Yeah.
That is really nice.
It's
because I hate
awesome.
hate having to put down the book and pick up my phone and search up a word. It's just like completely breaks the cadence. It's like,
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah. And it'll even do you can like grab a whole bunch of text, like highlight like a paragraph or whatever, and then add it to your notes or something. So like
Oh,
if
yeah.
you like there's like a notes section, you can highlight it all and then like add to notes, and it'll be saved in a separate like kind of area.
That's cool.
So that's always pretty sweet. Yeah, so I also read Lowtown. I liked it a lot. I definitely felt like in the middle it kind of gets a little convoluted, and it's kind of like what exactly is going on. But then I thought it had a really great ending. It had a really great, like, if there's 3 acts, it had a really great first act and a really great third. And so the middle kind of dropped a little bit for me, but it was still all very enjoyable. Have I told you what this is about, Chris? I know I've told, well,
Mm-mm.
Gabe's read it, but
I don't think so.
so this is set in I guess it's kind of urban fantasy, but it's set in like a kind of like a Dishonored type era, like kind of like 1800s, like We Men of Ash and Shadow kind of era, like whatever that Victorian kind of deal is. But they use lingo, like modern day lingo, like punk, cool stuff like that. They use all this modern lingo. They smoke cigarettes. And there's a couple other things that are more like modern. So it's kind of this weird kind of mashup of all these eras. They use like swords and horses and crossbows and all that. But it's a grimdark book about this guy who used to be a detective and was kind of removed from the detective force for unknown reasons. And then he became a drug dealer, like a really big drug dealer. So he's going all around like this fantasy town, like selling all these different types of drugs to all the people in this city. And there's like, kind of like gang warfare and stuff. Like there's some people that are like encroaching on his turf and whatnot. So that kind of gets dealt with. But then also this girl goes missing. That's kind of what starts off the majority of the plot.
Interesting.
And he's kind of still got these like detective instincts, and he can't, even though he does all these like really horrible things in his line of work,
Yeah.
he can't stand to see somebody like killing all these like this innocent girl goes missing, she winds up dead. Then there's like a boy who goes missing and winds up dead. And so there's this whole pattern of dead children. And so he's like, I got to get involved in this. And so he kind of gets wrapped into this mystery, trying to figure out like why all these kids are dying. And so that's exactly the kind of character I love. I love like a super morally gray character who's a badass, but also has this like heart of gold underneath. And so I thought that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed Lowtown.
That reminds me of Marcone from the Dresden Files.
Yeah, exactly. And then what else? Oh yeah, and so then I read Nemesis Games, which is the 5th book in the Expanse. And I had already read this one a while back, and I was kind of like a little bit lukewarm on it. And then I reread it this time, and I'm like,
you saw the light.
Yeah, I was like, why was I ever lukewarm on this? Like, I don't know if it was just because I had read like 5 in a row. Like that was when I was doing like a whole like month or 2 of back-to-back like Expanse books. And so I don't know if by the time I got to the 5th book, if I was just a little burnt out on it. But man, I read that this last week and I was just all about it. I loved it so much and I can't wait. I gotta read the first book in the Dark Tower series tomorrow for the podcast on Wednesday.
Gunslinger, right? Yeah.
Gunslinger, yeah. But I'm definitely gonna pick up The Expanse #6, whatever that is, right after Dark Tower, because I was just like, dude, I forgot how much I absolutely loved these characters. I love this setting in like this very realistic future.
I love it too, man. Yeah. Everything you talk about, I'm like, I need to read it now again too. Because
You
I
do.
haven't finished the series either. I'd be happy to start at book 1 again though. But yeah,
Right.
so
Me too. That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I've got that sick edition of Leviathan Wakes that you got for me too.
Oh,
I can start right away.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. What book did you end on? What was the last book you read, Chris? Was
The
it
4th
4?
one. Yeah, book 4.
Yeah. I think you and Gabe are in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to go back to The Expanse. Honestly, I can't wait to hop into book 6.
Did you watch the TV show or no?
So I stopped the TV show right before it got to where book 5 would be.
Okay.
Because at the time I hadn't yet read book 5 and I was like, I don't like, the books are way more important to me. So I was like, I don't want to spoil.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to spoil myself on anything. So I think what I'm going to do is read book 6 and then continue the TV show. Have you finished the TV show?
No, I've been holding off on the last season. I haven't watched the very last season that just released.
Yeah.
And I say just released. I think it was earlier this year. But yeah, I'd honestly, I want to start the entire season over again because the TV show is good. I mean, I like it.
How many seasons in the show are there?
There's 6.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Which
I was just gonna say real quick that I'm sure people who have read the series are probably going to be potentially disappointed because The Expanse had to wrap up so quickly and just because.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, but
do they include? I wonder if they include things from book 9 in season 6, because book 9 is the final one. And so I wonder if they just that all of season 6 is like a mashup of the next 3 books. I
don't think they did that, which I think probably serves them well. I could be wrong. So if someone knows better, then say so in the comments. But
yeah,
I recall reading an article that said they didn't really go the Game of Thrones route where they tried to just rush everything to a final conclusion and solve every problem. I think they kind of just sort of left it open, like they're like, this ending, but it's they took everything. They didn't try to rush to a conclusion like Game of Thrones did. I think they might have just done the final the next book in the series and
found a way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember the writer of the particular article I read was pleased. He thought it was decent because it meant that someone in the future, if they wanted to, could pick the series back up from Amazon and continue
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah.
I wonder why they would cancel it. That's such a weird choice, especially when all the source material is finished. Like you have a finished product in the source material. Like, why would you stop the show? I know they got rid of Alex or whatever, the pilot.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of the reason, but
yeah, I'm sure that had some influence in their decision, but
what do you think, Gabe? Should we do some episodes on The Expanse, start back at book 1 or something?
Yeah, dude, I would love that.
Yeah.
I want to start watch like the first 3 episodes, I think, of the show too, and really, really enjoyed those. So it'd be fun to do like parallel. We can read the books, maybe watch the show.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like that. All right, so let's get talking about I guess one last thing I'm reading is I hopped back into I started Reign of Madness, which is book 2 in the King's Dark Tidings. Almost forgot the name of the damn series.
I do it all the time, dude.
And man, I like book 2, as you guys well know, is my favorite book in the series, but I decided to hop into that one specifically because of the events in this book. And I just starting it today. I think I started it either this morning or late last night. And I am just constantly floored by this series. I think it's so incredible. Even only 2 chapters into it today or whatever, I was like, man, the way that she builds these characters and the way that she does like these really long but also kind of fast-paced character arcs, she's just a master at it. Like it's so good. Like seeing Tyrion when he was just a really snotty young noble and kind of knowing where he goes in the future. I was just like, oh man, like I kind of forgot about this. I forgot like how good it was. And I'm just enjoying so much about it. And even things like seeing Rezkin like explain the rules to like all the other people, like Striker Kai, and like kind of going over the rules with Striker Kai and talking to all the other people about like his code, his rules. I was like, man, I love everything about this. I love every single aspect of this character and this world, and it's amazing. All right, so let's go into Mage of No Renown spoilers. We will be covering basically everything. Like all spoilers are on the table. So if you have not read King's Dark Tidings book 1 through 4, then I would definitely do that before watching this, because we're going to go into like a ton of theories and just do a bunch of cross-examination of these books with the prequel. But also, if you have not read King's Dark Tidings and are wondering if you should pick up the prequel book first, the answer is no. Do not pick up this prequel before you read books 1 through 4, because there is a lot that gets revealed in this prequel for the other books. So this is definitely a book to read between books 4 and 5.
Now, would you say that you might be biased in that because you've already read the series? Because if you think about it from the other side, like you could read the prequel, and then when you read the series, all that stuff gets unlocked and makes sense. Does that make sense?
I don't think so. I think
like I was thinking, I was like, I totally would have read that first, like, because it's almost a separate story. And obviously it follows Wesson. It's almost a separate story. You definitely get a lot of hints and like insight into the main series, but no, I felt like it could have gone both ways personally.
Yeah, I personally disagree. I guess it's up to each individual, but like I think there's definitely like a couple things in this prequel that I wouldn't have wanted to know before going into books 1 through 4, because like even just the premise of the book, Wesson's backstory, like part of why his character is so interesting in the first 4 books is because you don't know really anything about him, and it's just kind of alluded to that he's got this really dark past, and it's like, oh, like what's that about? And that's like, for me at least, that's one of the reasons why he was such an interesting character. But also the fact that Baringish is training like Kadian and stuff, like that's all stuff that gets revealed in book 4. And the fact that the necromancers, the Sengoka, even know Bordrin or are like working with him, that's all stuff that gets kind of revealed later on. So yeah, I don't know. I would personally disagree with that, I think.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I mean, it could be done either way. I mean, it really could be read beforehand, but I think part of the magic is reading it afterwards. Like, the whole epilogue is gonna be somewhat meaningless to you unless you've read
Oh
the
yeah.
series. Like, it was when the epilogue started, it was kind of like that scene from Rogue One, where in the very end is like the opening of A New Hope, where you're like, oh my
Oh
god, this is so
yeah.
cool,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like the whole epilogue
Yep.
of Mage of No Renown was a big scene in
Yeah.
the first book of
For sure.
KDT, and it was just like, oh, this is so cool, just
Yeah.
reading,
Yeah, being back here again.
and from Wesson's
Yeah.
perspective, where he looks up and sees riders coming, and then just
Yeah.
like,
Exactly. And his whole like inner monologue of like when he sees Reskin for the first time, or like him working with Raylan, like trying to be very careful not to like scare her away, or
Yep.
all that. I loved the epilogue so much. Matter of fact, I think Gabe texted me, like I hadn't finished the book yet, and Gabe texted me and he was just like, oh my god. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
something good is coming.
Yeah, it's all that's lost if you don't read the first series, but I mean, you definitely could. Yeah.
I think
It's
there's fair points on both sides for sure. I think it's just a toss up.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure a lot of readers would connect the dots necessarily when they're reading about Baringish and the Sengoku like
But-
right away, right? I mean, I don't know.
Sure,
If
I
they read
think-
that first and then went back to the series, I don't think they'd immediately be like, oh, this is huge. Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you read this first, then you would have answers that you didn't know what to do with because you don't have the information from the other books, which is fine. But then as you get into like probably like book 2, I would say that there's things in this book that might ruin the surprise of book 4, possibly. And obviously everybody is, there's probably some people that wouldn't put those things together. But I think if you're someone who pays attention to a lot of the details and stuff, I think it might be possible that the big reveal in book 4 could possibly be a little ruined for you. Probably not all the way, but a little bit.
okay.
So
I
then
don't
why market it as a prequel then? Like the first of the thing.
I don't think it's marketed as like the first book. It's a prequel story, but she's said specifically to read it before book 5. Like even on her Twitter, she's mentioned like this is meant to be read between books 4 and 5. It's just a way to give us Wesson's backstory, because I think it's something. I think a lot of the information in this book is stuff that we're going to need for book 5.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need that prophecy. I think we're going to need Wesson's backstory. I think we're going to need to know who Lizka and Baringish are.
Yeah.
I guarantee Lizka is going to come up in the next book.
Yeah.
And maybe even Roan, or what was his mentor's name? Acades, or
Yeah, something like that.
Equestrius.
Yes, Master Equestrius.
Yeah. And so I really wonder if a lot of those characters are going to be popping up in book 5, which would be really cool, especially that prophecy, dude. I have a feeling that's gonna be explored further in book 5. But we are getting way ahead of ourselves talking about theories. Let's talk about our general thoughts and first impressions of Mage of No Renown. What did you guys think right off the bat finishing this book? What was your hype level?
I mean, it was massive. My hype level was massive before I even turned it on. Like it was very anticipated. We here at Fantasy Files love Kilcade and Kingstar. Monumental series is, I feel like, at least for me, like that we've read. And so yeah, it was all hyped the whole time, and it didn't really let up, the whole time. Like I was reading it, it was a constant state of excitedness and like just looking forward to more. So yeah, it was great, man. It was super cool to learn about Wesson, because just like you said, it's a question that we've had reading the other series and whatnot. So,
Right. Chris?
Yeah, Wesson is one of my favorite characters in the original series, and so I was excited to read this and get some backstory on him and dive back into the world of KDT, and just hopefully get a look at what made Wesson the character that he
Yeah.
is. So yeah, and I guess you said overall impressions. I really enjoyed it. It was surprisingly quick and easy read, and that's saying something for me because I go slow usually. But it was great. It was a great length for I think a prologue type of book.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the pace, the pacing, and the characters that were introduced. I thought there were really no sort of, I guess, extraneous or unnecessary characters. Every
Yeah.
character that was introduced I thought was relevant and was memorable in some way at least, and had some meaning. So
For sure.
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I think this book has had some weird like I feel like half the fandom is like, why are we getting Mage No Renown? We just want KDT 5. And then the other half are like, I really want to hear about Wesson's backstory. And I was definitely one of the ones that was like not more excited about Mage of No Renown than KDT 5, but I was kind of like this is something I really want. Like I really want to know what's going on with Wesson, and I think that we weren't really let down at all with his backstory and finding out more about him. I think that this is a really valuable part of the whole timeline.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I think that the events of this book are going to have major I don't know, is repercussions the right word?
Ramifications.
Like they'll come back in some way in the later books.
Yeah.
Like I think in a big way. Like I think that there's some characters that are introduced in this book, specifically Roan. I think that's gonna come back to bite Wesson in the ass a little bit.
Gonna try.
He can try.
Yeah, so I guess that's true. That is a good point. So I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about some of the fandom thinks that this book doesn't need to exist and that she should just write number 5, right? Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
It was weird. I feel like there's just like some spoiled brats, like people, because I think the last KDT 4, what is it, Kingdoms and Chaos or whatever the title of that is, that was written, or that came out like 4 years ago. And then KDT 5, Demons and Dragons, I think, is coming out this winter or this fall. And I feel like people were like, oh, like she's taken 4 years to like write this book. And I'm like, try being a King Killer fan.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, or a Game of Thrones fan.
Or Game of Thrones, like, or even like a Dresden Files fan. We waited like, I think it was 6 years, 5 or 6 years for Peace Talks and Battlegrounds. Like, I feel like, Kelcade is not sloughing on writing KDT, because she wrote, she put out Kingdoms and Chaos, and then she did 2 other books in between them that weren't in the KDT universe. And then she came back to KDT. So I feel like people were just kind of being spoiled brats about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a mainstay in the series, right? It's like a complement, right? It's an addition. But it's a good addition, right? I mean, I think fleshes out one of the larger side characters. and
Yeah,
if you can even call him a
definitely.
side character, I mean, he's almost
Yeah.
one of the main characters
yeah,
in the
for sure.
yeah. So
Yeah. He's
I,
in like the front line of
yeah,
characters, I would
yeah.
right.
say.
Yeah. So I, and I enjoyed it for that. I guess if you're looking for some huge reveal into the main story, then you might be disappointed, I think,
Sure.
right? Because for me, there was nothing that jumped out as like, oh, this is huge for the main story. But as you said, there are certain things that are alluded to that will probably have implications further on in the main story, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, do we agree on that at least? I
Yeah,
mean, I
oh,
think,
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this was giving us less answers to things and more pieces to use later on, I feel like.
Yep,
Maybe.
that makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
Were you guys disappointed at all with the lack of answers? I do have a note here where I mentioned that I did kind of want at least a couple more answers, and I feel like we didn't quite get that. But I also had this whole theory about Mage of No Renown that did
Oh, did
not
you
turn
really?
out to be true.
Oh, let's
Really?
hear it, dude. Let's
Yeah.
hear
Yeah,
it.
I feel like we should hear it.
So I had this theory because and you know what? I forgot to put these in the notes, but I have them on my phone. I thought that what was going to happen was by the end of this book, Wesson would get the box open and there would be some sort of like, conscription from his father, like some sort of like call to action that like I thought Wesson's father would be clued in on what the Sengoku are doing with the boy Rezkin, because at the time he would have been like 6 or whatever. And so I thought his dad would have been like clued into that and told Wesson like, hey, like the thing that's in this box is going to help you defeat like or put a stop to this power that they're trying to raise in this fortress or something. I thought that somehow by the end of this book, Wesson would become clued in on who Rezkin is and knows that he's like a major threat and needs to keep an eye on him, because reading through the second book, there's just some weird things that happen between Wesson and Rezkin. Like Wesson is never really phased when anything gets revealed about Rezkin. Like even when he finds out the Raven, he's like, oh yeah, like totally, I see that. I see how that's possible. Or like when Rezkin brings out his swords for the first time, Wesson is just like, yeah, not a big deal. And so I almost felt like he already knew all this stuff and that's why he wasn't phased. And so that's kind of why I thought he had some pre-existing information on Rezkin. But also reading the second book, Wesson is always kind of like sneaking around Rezkin and kind of spying on him from time to time. It gets mentioned a few times
I see
in the second book. And Rezkin even mentions that he hardly ever notices the mage, that Wesson is like actively trying to be like stealthy and putting up some sort of like stealthy barrier to not be seen as much. And so I kind of thought by the end of this book, Wesson would see Rezkin and we'd get some sort of inner monologue of him being like, this is the guy, like this is everything I've been planning. I need to, tour with this guy and keep an eye on him. This is going to be a major key in whatever is about to come.
Interesting.
And that definitely didn't happen.
Yeah.
No, it did not. That would have been cool though. I like.
Yeah, I was like,
would have been
totally
cool.
thought.
I don't like the fact that would have made Rezkin out to be like the bane of everything, like I don't feel like he's that. Like I think that they trained him to be that originally, but like he's not,
I don't know, man. It's kind of said in the fourth book that on some level he is. He's got it's mentioned that there's some sort of demon inside him.
Demon blood.
Yeah, there's some sort of like dark energy about him. But also Rezkin says the whole reason that he doesn't make Wesson swear fealty to him is because someday Wesson may need to be his res. Like someday Wesson might have to stop Reskin if he goes too far, because he doesn't have any real moral compass. He has an idea of like honor and stuff. But the main fan theory is that he's going to get to a point where he's doing things that he sees as right and that makes sense in his kind of, morally blank head. But his friends are going to be like, what the hell? Like, you cannot do this. Like, you're going too far. And he's not going to be able to see that because he looks at things in a very particular sort of way. And so I figured that this book would be setting that up somehow, that Wesson would know that he's going to need to step in at some point and either slow Reskin down or put a stop to him, or maybe outright kill him if Reskin goes too far.
Gotcha.
So let's see. I love how we get to see much more magic in this book, a much better glimpse as to how the magic works. Like, we get like detailed, almost step by step, parts of them creating spells. Like, oh, you got to add this to the first Lexilog, and then when you go into the second Lexilog, you got to add this command, and it's kind of this whole like programming type language. And that is something we did not see in the bigger series, and so I loved being able to get a deeper glimpse into the magic.
Yeah, it was neat to see how how apt Weston is at spell crafting, right? Sort of like it's like a hard science, like he's like a chemist in a certain way, just creating these complex formulas but with spells. So that was cool. I don't know, I don't really remember if they touched on that so much in the original series. Maybe a little bit, but it was
no.
like
So I mean like, they knew, at least Reskin knew that he's way more powerful than he had to let on, and like they knew that he was like wards and sound this stuff due to his Gnosit and constructive abilities, combining them. But yeah, no, this was like a whole new level of wildness for magic, I guess.
Yeah, a whole new depth. I think before we got like the like Pyrus and Aqueous and all these different names of the different types of magic that you can have, and like all the different types of mages and how all this stuff kind of connects, which I've always loved. Even though it didn't go super deep into like spell creation, I really loved all that. But to get like the step by step, like even though we don't like understand what any of that really means, like I don't know what the hell a Lexilog is, but it was just cool to be able to see them like that this is like a hard, like mathematical kind of endeavor. I think I put this note here because I didn't know where else to put it in the notes, but it was cool. It was cool getting to see Reader Kessa, that the reader that we get to see in book 4, where that Reskin goes to in that faraway kingdom. And that
was the same reader, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And they kind of had a whole interaction where in the 4th book where Reader Kessa tells the king or whatever, like, there's nothing you can make this mage do that he doesn't want to do. Like there's no getting around this. Like you don't want to fuck with this mage, basically. And then they kind of have some back and forth that makes it seem like they definitely know each other, and we're kind of left hanging like, how did they know each other? And so I kind of expected it to be maybe like a bigger role in this book. I thought that there would be like a much more like memorable interaction between the two of them, but it was also just cool being able to see her on the page and seeing her kind of read him really quick and say like, these are your affinities. This is a pretty good scene. So talking about the author and the narrator real quick, I don't have much to say on this. but I did want to mention that this book, obviously I enjoy all the books. I think Kelkade is a very good author. But man, this book just really cemented how far she's come since writing the first book. I saw a ton of improvement, especially with pacing and just story construction. And I thought that she's just come a long way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And with the utmost respect, you remember that I was almost put off on this series just because of the first book, right? Remember,
Sure, yeah.
I couldn't stand Raylan and some of the other characters, and you guys kept telling me to forge ahead, and I was like, I don't know if I can, but yeah, but I mean, it's night and day compared to the first book. I mean, again, like I said at the beginning, I didn't actively dislike any of the characters in this book like I did in the very first book. I mean, each one I felt was written in a way where they added something to the story, and they felt like a unique character. They were interesting, right? I mean, they may have had qualities that I didn't like, but that was part of their character. It wasn't like as
it
if
wasn't
they were
part
written.
of the writing.
Yeah, exactly. So again, definitely it's cool to see how far the writing's come.
Yeah, for sure. So also as always, as with every Nick Podell audiobook, God, he is just perfect.
Yeah.
He's good.
He's like the god of audiobooks.
Perfect. Exactly. I'm just always floored with his performance every single time. And then especially like I had never really remembered like what, because I hadn't read the 4 books since the last time we did that podcast on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kind of forgotten that Rezkin had like this really specific, like very noble sounding voice. And dude, when we hear Rezkin in the epilogue, like I squealed like a teenage girl at a Jonas Brothers concert, dude. Like I was just like, it's Rezkin.
Yeah, that's so funny.
No, I know. I felt the same. Well, I won't say the same way, but
yeah, maybe not quite that far.
I really enjoyed hearing it too. Like, oh, this is great.
What'd you guys think of the cover art for this?
I thought it was kind of lackluster, I would say.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they're not my favorite covers, even like for the 4 books. A couple of them, I don't know which ones are pretty cool, but it's behind you right now, and I mean, like, it's cool, but it's like very just heck. You just got to stand in there behind a tree with stone. That's it. That's all you get. And so I was like,
interesting.
I feel like that could be a little more thing, but I mean, it fits West. Like that's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's cool, because of the scene near the end of the book where it just basically nukes a forest.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, the way Wesson's described, I get
that doesn't look like Wesson.
Right. It's like the guy's a little too masculine, right? I mean,
yeah. I definitely had that concern as well.
I mean, they gotta sell books, and the cover,
right?
Like you yourself have pointed out, the cover often sells the book. So maybe a feminine looking sort of
probably wouldn't have been
short girlish looking king. You might not sell books, but I mean, I think it serves its purpose. But yeah, it doesn't look like how I would picture Wesson for sure. I wouldn't describe that character or that image as pretty, like as some people describe Wesson, like
he
mistaken for a girl, right?
He definitely looks older in the cover. I think he probably looks like he's in his 20s there.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a little too masculine. It looks kind of tall too. I don't know.
No, he does look tall for sure.
But man, that's so funny that you say that, because like the King's Dark Tidings like covers are my favorite covers in like all of fantasy. Like I love them to death. But
and I'm not saying that like I don't love them. Like I said, like they're good, great covers. They're enticing, but this just felt like less those books. could have been more, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
I think I like them because I'm really fond of covers that have like a character on the front that you can see,
Yeah.
because like I'm a very visual person, and so even reading a book, like when an author describes a character, sometimes it's very hard for me to like picture it in my head. So
Yeah.
when I have a character on the front of the book that I can see and picture while I'm reading, I really like that a lot.
Yeah.
But then covers like the one behind you, Gabe, where he's fighting the big Kraken thing.
Yeah.
I love that because I love book covers that make you ask a question. Like looking at that book cover, you're like, holy shit, is he gonna fight like a giant squid in this book?
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
hell? And it gets you really interested.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the books like Game of Thrones where it's just like a shield on the cover, or like just a sword, or the Witcher books do the same thing with some of those editions. It's just like the head of a wolf on one book.
Yeah.
And I hate those because they don't make you ask any questions. They don't make you like, oh, what's this about? It's not immediately like engaging you in the art.
Yeah.
And so I really love covers like this where, even though that doesn't quite look like Wesson, it's like, dude, is he about to do some crazy earth magic? Like, what's going on in this book? So I think that's why I love him.
That's fair. Yeah,
Yep, that's totally fair.
I do like the cover art of the second book, Reign of Madness. just 'cause
Yes. Oh
he
my
looks
God.
like it always reminds you like the Predator. He just looks
Yes.
like Predator. And it's like,
yes.
that's pretty fitting.
Yeah.
For real.
Exactly. And that's funny that she wrote that way too, because when I was reading that, like I saw the cover art, I'm like, I have no idea what this is referencing or anything.
Mhm.
But then when she writes how he's like got this mask that's very like nondescript and it's very creepy, and then he's got like all this hair, I'm like, that's the Predator. Like that's
Yeah.
that's got to be a Predator reference.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't have much world building stuff, but something I did think was interesting, near the beginning of the book when Wesson is running away, he looks at one of the coins that his mother gave him. And on the Ashayan coins, it says Shikeya Alanya Ashai. And the
Wow,
way
good job. Wow.
the way Podell read this, it immediately made alarm bells go off in my head. I'm like, that is the same way that the I forget exactly what they're called, but
They're the guardians of
Elvish?
Kyle.
Yeah.
The Elvish people.
The elf spirits, whatever the actual name for them is. It sounds like their language.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It does, yeah.
And so I'm like, I wonder if somehow they're involved in the founding of Ashai. I don't know. I feel like it was just a really cool piece of world building because we've never seen what's on any of these coins before.
Yeah.
And so to see like what's written on them, I'm like, damn, that sounds really, very much like that language.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was pretty cool. But otherwise, I don't feel like we get a whole lot of other world building stuff in this book. We do get to see the academies.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
What did you guys think of these two mage academies? We have the basic one and like the battle mage one.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
I
I'm
just
kidding.
think it's a great way to like kind of, implement or back up way that it's wielded and the different classes, because it's the mage, it's just like the military, you've got your lieutenants, chiefs, generals, this and that. Same with first year, fifth year battle mage, journeyman, all that. And so it was cool. And it's also kind of, it's fun to see that they separate, they have an academy just for battle mages, right? Just for attack destructive people that are meant to be war dogs and like decimate our enemies pretty much. Like that's why that whole thing's there. And so that was really interesting to see the versus like the first academy or whatever that's called, just the Mage Academy.
Mage
yeah.
Academy. Yeah.
Catering to like healers and like like
Earth
people that can till the
mages.
farms, and yeah, like Tika who can help farmers and like do all this stuff with magic, and then you just get to the Battle Mage Academy and it's destroy, destroy, destroy.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of an interesting parallel, but I like them. I think it kind of fleshes out more of the way that the magic hierarchy works in the series.
Yeah. Chris, any thoughts on the academies?
Yeah, I mean, it just they added some world building to the series. I don't think there was anything in particular that was
Sure.
revealing about them, but
Yeah.
it was a nice bit of world building that
Yeah.
I enjoyed. I enjoyed the chapters of their time at the Mage Academy and the Battle Mage Academy.
Yeah.
There were particular interactions that they had with students that I really enjoyed. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting how, you go from like the basic academy, like Gabe said, where there's all these different types of mages, whether they're healers or earth mages, life mages, whatever. And then they go to, and everyone's kind of like friendly at the first one. Like
Yeah.
everyone's pretty, like besides a couple things, everyone's fairly welcoming.
they don't like generalists, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But then you go on to the Battle Mage Academy, and it's like a whole different breed
Yeah.
of students. Like they are there for violence. They're constantly like testing each other and trying to like, harm each other and all this different stuff. And it's like, oh wow, you just stepped into like the darker side of magic. Like nobody here likes you. Like,
Yeah.
and it's I thought that was pretty interesting to see the difference between those mages. And it's funny to think that all of the people at the first academy are probably going to go into the world and get various types of jobs, whether they're like Tika and they become a farmer and they use their magic to help them farm or whatever, or a healer that goes into like medicine and whatnot. And then you go to the Battle Mage Academy, and all of those mages are there for the military.
Yeah.
Like those are all the ones that KDN is going to use and turn into his personal, war heroes.
If a draft occurs, right?
If a draft occurs,
Which it will.
Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of like generally understood at that academy that like, it's very possible that they could all get drafted into the military and have to fight in these big battles. And there's really no other options for them. Like they can probably go on to like help, a band of mercenaries or, be guards or something for a traveling, group or whatever. But if you're a battle mage, you always have that kind of hanging over your head that you can get drafted at any time to fight for KDN.
That's true. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing that I kind of thought was cool about it is, so anytime that there's some sort of academy in a fantasy books, with the exception of King Killer, anytime there's like some sort of magical academy, or like we're all going to go here and learn how to be assassins, or we're all going to learn how to be warriors or knights or whatever, I always kind of roll my eyes, because I think that that's like a really overdone trope, and I'm really, really tired of seeing academies, like all these different academies that train you how to be a fantasy hero in all these different books. However, I liked the way it was done in this book, because it's not like Wesson is going there, but he's not staying there. Like he's
not
just
a student.
Yeah, like he's popping in to do what he has to do to get like his for lack of better term, like mage license, right? Like he's just going through the motions because he has to, but otherwise he just wants to be mentored by Equestrius. And I love the trope of apprentice and mentor much more than student and academy.
Yeah.
And I think that she found a way to get both of those things into this book for the two different types of readers who like both things. And I think she did that really, really well. So that was another thing about the academy that I actually liked.
So you don't like the university in Kingkiller Chronicles?
So yeah, that's the exception.
Also that, okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the exception. But I feel like far too often I'll read a book about like an assassin and they have to go to this like why is there a school for assassins? Like why is there like classes that they go to that train them in the art of murder? Like I feel like that story, like the assassin or thief story, is told so much better in a apprentice mentor way, like in Night Angel. And so, yeah, for the most part, I just really hate those. All right, let's talk about some of the magic in this book. What were some of your guys' favorite scenes with different spells or different things we got to see Wesson or the side characters do?
So I think probably my favorite magic scene is when the battle master, calls Wesson up to quarters or wherever he is.
Oh yeah.
And basically says like, I heard about this tertiary refracting ward that you could make or whatever else. And so he basically forces him to put this ward onto a chair and then says, attack it with, the most insane spell that you should know. And I just extricate. Yeah, exactly. And it was just this like violent explosion of magic. And the part that like, I think was most intriguing or exciting, it was the battle master reaction to all of it. I think that a lot of actions were really, he's kind of got this way about him where it's, that he's not really a good guy, right? He's got these motives that are very ulterior for the king. And yet Wesson's got so much power, like he gets put in his place.
Yeah.
He's like, I did what you told me to. And he's, yes, always do what I told you to. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you can't cage this beast. Like as much as you're gonna try, you won't be able to ever. And so I don't know. Their interactions were probably not like my favorite, but I really enjoyed, the battle master kind of put on and get put in his place. Wesson's like, no, like you can't do anything to me. Like I could destroy this world if I wanted to, like, that level of power. And so, yeah, I don't know. I thought that was cool. And then again, with that, like refracting ward, like that's just spellcraft at its finest. Like, the way that he built it, like was, super to learn about and kind of see, his thought process and stuff.
And he's like the only person that can really cast it unless you have two mages of those
he
types.
Can combine constructive and destructive. Exactly. And that's why Battle Master was like, no, you can't, nobody can do that. That's impossible.
Right.
Like, prove it to me right now. And he fucking does. And then the dude's like, oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that scene. Chris, any favorite magic?
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene where Wesson placed what was it, a
power block? Or
well, that, but the sort of the paralyzing spell or binding spell on the girl battle mage when she comes into the barracks.
That was great.
And mouths off to him after she had just groveled to him earlier and apologized and all that stuff. And then she comes back and starts yelling at him and basically being a little snotty brat, and then he just places a binding spell on her and she's frozen, completely solid.
Yeah.
and then I was kind of surprised because it seemed a little against his nature, because she's not hurt, but it's still terrifying by the look in her eyes, apparently, because she literally cannot move. She just frozen solid. And I was surprised kind of Wesson's just like, I'm gonna go take a shower first. And then,
yeah.
I was like, wow, okay. Like,
Yeah.
Damn.
That was more where I'm like, you go, dude, go away.
yeah, but it kind of, yeah, I mean, I liked it, but you know,
No,
he's
for
just kind of,
sure,
he's
yeah.
kind of like, you know, he's asking her, he's like, can you break it? Like, he's like, no,
Yeah.
he's like, no, you can't. I know for a fact that you don't have the skills
Yeah.
required
Yeah,
to
just
ever
like
to ever
shits
get
on
out
her.
of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh damn.
Yeah, no, that was a great scene.
So
Yeah.
that was cool.
So I think that's a good segue into talking about kind of this kind of these two sides of Wesson. Like he really like doesn't want to hurt people. He doesn't even want to use destructive magic. But then sometimes this other side comes through, like we see with the tentacles when he's fighting the assassin the first time, and he hits him, like he's like cackling and giggling, and these tentacles come out and strangle the assassin. And then even something as, you know, seemingly insignificant as, you know, him placing this binding spell on this girl, you can tell that he has this moment where he's kind of like, I don't know if like getting off on it is the right term, but in a way, kind of, he like, cause like you said, he's like, can you break it? Like, no, you can't. And like,
Right.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
just has this like kind of power moment. And it's like, oh shit, like I do not want to fuck with Wesson. Like,
Yeah, dude. I'm so convinced that that side of him has something to do with the urn or the pottery. I really do feel like that. I don't know if he absorbed that demon or whatever it is, and it's like that part of him where he just loses everything and cackles and wants to destroy. Like, I'm just so confident that I'm probably gonna be wrong, but I like to think I might be right.
yeah, because even Baringish was like, if he was, if he had any sort of contact with that thing, it's gonna be like controlling him.
Yeah,
He's
possession or it would go off to wherever it came from. But it's like,
yeah,
I feel like Wesson's will is so extremely powerful that he blocks this demon like away, right? And it's always trying to
yeah,
like get at him to like destroy, use the power, all this, and he fights it. And that's a control that his master's like, so like you have more control than I've ever seen of anybody. So I'm just like, that's been like stuck in my head that that's what's going on.
yeah. What do you think about that, Chris?
So you think the demon has possessed him then?
I think that I wouldn't say possessed. I think that the demon resides within him, but Wesson has,
He's hosting the demon.
he's
to some
hosting
extent.
the demon. Yeah, that's what I feel.
That is a really good theory and one that I would get on board with, because I was kind of curious myself as to why the pot was broken.
Yeah.
You know, it was like,
Yeah,
I was trying to remember back to the main series. I was like, does that get explained? Or remember that? Yeah, that's why I kind of asked you guys before we
Yeah.
started about that, because I was like, what was the significance of that? But then, you know, I think we know that those markings on it are demon markings essentially,
Yes.
right? And so it
yeah,
was a,
or like wards to keep the demon in or something.
okay, yeah, and it was a vessel to contain the,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's why Baringish wants it so badly.
Yeah.
but
To get the power that's within and use it. Yeah.
so that's really interesting. I think that's a valid theory, and because where else would it have gone, right? And
Yeah, dude.
I'm wondering how did it just, were Wesson's father's wards not strong enough and it broke out even though the box was protected? Or
That's true.
Yeah.
That's probably the only flaw that has in my mind. Or like, I even had some weird thought about like what if his dad like knew that it would go in him and knew that he could like contain it somehow or something. That's a little far off, but
Mhm.
just thinking along those lines.
Yeah.
Or I wonder, because Baringish, there's a line that he has, I don't remember the exact quote, but he says, if Wesson even had any like passing interaction with this thing, it would affect him in very
Yeah.
weird ways.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, you know, when Wesson was very young, the thing broke. But I feel like his mom would have told him about that, but maybe not.
Well, I think I don't think his mom knew, because he was in the beginning, like the very beginning of the book, he was talking about this box, and it didn't seem like she knew what was in it, because he says, something very, that I have to protect and that I can't let anybody else have. And it sounded
true.
like she didn't even know, like,
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, it possibly could have broken, and the demon got free in the presence of Wesson and had some like passing interaction with him, and then went off to wherever it was going to go. Maybe it went into Reskin.
yeah,
And then Wesson has some lingering effects from that demon. I feel like it's got to be one of the two, either like a full on like Wesson is hosting it, or it had some sort of interaction with him, giving him these weird magical side effects. And maybe that's why Wesson's destructive power is so high. Maybe it affected when he came into his power. Maybe that demon affected that power imbalance. And kind of left him with those things. Another thing about the magic I thought was interesting was we find out that wands are a thing in this world. And I love how it's like it almost feels like Kelcade was asked in like an AMA or something, like, hey, do mages use wands in these worlds, or do they use staffs? And she's like, yeah, I bet I could write that in somehow. And then we just kind of get briefly introduced to wands. Nobody really uses one. Everybody kind of laughs about people who do use wands. And then and Wesson even says at one point, like, yeah, I have no use for a wand. Like, even though he tries it, he does his best, like he does the program right. But then in the end, he's like, I don't need this.
And that's when he was doing that tertiary refracting ward, he
used it.
Well, he whips it into his hand, and then he thinks about it. He's like, there's no way that this wand can handle the amount of power that I'm going to push through it. Like,
for extra
is that what he says?
Yeah.
For extra, so he doesn't use it for extra pay.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, they can't be all that great if you can, potentially, if it could backfire if you use it as a focus. But then again, Wesson's got power 3 times stronger than any mage that ever lived. So who knows?
Right. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Oh, so we also see Roan give Wesson this spell. They're out like with the seed, him and that girl, and Roan is like, here, use this spell. And Wesson's like, I'm not going to use that if I don't know what it does. And I thought for sure by the end of the book,
we'd know what it does.
But, and I don't know if maybe it's the spell he used at the end of the book, but I don't think it ever said that.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's something we'll see in the next book of Wesson being like, oh, I remember this spell this guy taught me, and like, let's look into it and see what it does. Maybe it's something that saves the world or whatever. I don't know. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, knowing the battle mage, I'd be surprised if it saved the world.
Yeah.
Or I just mean like
it was probably
Wesson,
meant to destroy Wesson somehow, or something that would hurt him.
Or even if it's just like a big explosion, I could see Wesson finding a way to use it in a time of need.
Definitely.
So the last thing I have for the magic is I loved this lesson with the water globe when Equestrius and Wesson are kind of walking along the trail, and it's such a like Wesson moment, just kind of like this sad, like Wesson is so like every theme around Wesson is just like so sad. Like he's just this person that doesn't want to destroy, but has like the most power. And even from the other books, like we were talking about with the clay pot, and he's got it sitting on this crate, and he's like, I can't put it back together. And it's, oh my God, that scene is so good. But, so that kind of goes with this scene from this book where he's got, Equestrius is asking him to take all the water out of nearby places, out of the air, whatever, and turn it into a sphere. And the first time he does it, it's not very good. It's like this really small, very, vague sphere of water. And
Because
so
he uses constructive magic to do it, right? That first
right.
time.
And so then he uses destruction
Destructive, yeah.
magic to pull water from the plant life and the trees and stuff. And he pulls way too much and creates this really dense sphere of water. And all of the land around them just goes completely barren, like pulls all the water from the trees, the grass, everything. And his master is like, holy shit, like I'm lucky you didn't pull the water out of me. Like, what the hell? And then he turns to Wesson and he's like, so well, they kind of talk about that for a minute, about how, you know, he used way too much power to pull all this water from everything and killed. He's like, look around you, like you killed everything. And then he says, can you put the water back? And and he says, well, I can disperse it, but I can't bring the plants back to life. And he says, exactly. Remember that when you try to use destructive magic for creation spells. And it's just, it's this moment where you
lesson learned. He says
Oh,
lesson learned. Yeah.
yeah, dude. Oh my God. Like it's such a good moment for Wesson, because it's so in line with the theme of his character that he can't control this like hurricane of magic that goes through him in such big ways. And of course, and he gets like better control and he gets better and better with that. But it just goes along with his theme throughout the rest of the books, how he's always destroying and he can't create. I love that. I absolutely love that scene. All right, let's go on to characters, and then we'll hit up some of our favorite moments. We got Wesson here, obviously the main character. What did you guys think of his arc throughout this book? Is this kind of what you expected for his character? Did you, reading the first 4 books, is this kind of what you expected from him?
I would, it's somewhat of what I expected. I think to the of what was, the internal turmoil that he always had, because like in the books, we see that he like really wants to like repent and turn away from this destructive side, but then at the same time, like seeing in these moments where he like, I think that like there's and I'm sure you see this too, but like he can use destructive magic for good, and I don't think he really like realizes that, I guess, yet.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just a lot of battling in his head, which I guess was expected. I kind of figured that was going to be part of it, maybe not to the extent, but yeah.
There were things that I liked about the character Wesson in this book, and then there were things that I didn't like so much. I mean, Wesson is, there was a scene that really resonated me with Tika, who's probably my favorite character of this book, just because he was the loyal, like more socially, more socially adept, like older best friend of Wesson.
Yeah.
But he called, like in a moment of anger, he calls Wesson an idiot. He's like, Wesson, you're not, he's like, you're an idiot. And it was, is when he found out that Wesson had potentially more power than any other mage, right?
Yeah.
It's like that he knew he was a natural at Nocent or destructive power and fire, but he didn't know that he had this sort of, I guess,
crazy
huge
amount of it.
Yeah, huge well of power or Vimara to be used. And I kind of echo that sentiment throughout a lot of the book, because in some ways Wesson seems to be sort of naive and an idiot. Like I didn't fully understand his obsession with Dia, a girl that he was childhood friends with, that he keeps writing to weekly, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And she just never responds.
I know.
I honestly thought that when they were going to go rescue her, I thought it was going to turn out that she had been like dead for years or something.
Yeah.
And that he just never knew.
Ooh, that would have been interesting.
And yeah, right. I know. I was expecting. But there's no resolution on Dia. Like, is she alive? Does he ever see her again? I mean, So that was
Yeah.
kind of a disappointment to me, because it was like, why does Wesson care so much about a childhood? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we're all close with childhood friends, but after what,
Like,
7 years, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's and just his insistence on just his absolute refusal to acknowledge reality or even consider learning certain spells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm being super critical, but
No, go
No, I
for it.
mean, yeah, I agree with what you're saying for sure.
but I guess to kind of bring it back is he does start to learn. There's a scene where when he's going with Tika to rescue Dia from the Black Hall assassin,
Yeah.
where he's wishing, he's like, wow, I wish I would have actually learned some battle mage
Yeah.
spells from Master Equestrius.
Right.
And then right there, it's kind of like click, and he's like, oh yeah, knowledge is not the enemy. Right. And I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Knowledge is not the enemy. Which, I mean, I guess that's an interesting question. It depends on your school of thought, because,
Sure.
for example, in, you take the Jedi and Sith in Star Wars. For the Jedi, that knowledge is the enemy. You are not allowed to have dark side knowledge as a Jedi, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is the enemy, but in certain worlds, and I think in reality here, in this world, in this case, knowledge is not the enemy,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to someone like Wesson.
Yeah.
You could argue against me though, because when Wesson snaps, you see what happens. He nukes a forest, collapses a tower in the Battle Mage Academy,
Yeah.
and chaos reigns. So it's like, if he had more knowledge, would worse things have happened? So there's
Yeah.
both sides, but I guess
So
to kind of
I guess
go ahead.
I guess so jumping off of that, it kind of comes down to I feel like that's Wesson's whole thing, is he doesn't want to learn those things because he knows that his natural inclination, like it's not like he doesn't enjoy using destructive magic. Like, he loves destroying things. Like, he
Which
finds,
scares him.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, he finds like genuine joy in, like, when he destroys the ship in book 4, like, he's like cackling, and it's kind of hit from his point of view, and it says like this well of joy and like uplifting and just like elation goes through him when he gets to completely implode this ship. And so, you got to wonder, like you just said, the more knowledge he has, if he does snap like that, if he ever like he has the potential to be a really, really bad dude. And multiple characters say that
Yeah.
in this book.
Mhm.
Even Equestrius says at one point, like, please remain a boy. Like, if you have to choose between remaining a boy or a man, like, the
That's
world
right.
the world needs you as a boy, because if you're a man who is like seeking power and all, like, the world is going to be terrifying. And I think it's Kessa, reader Kessa, or maybe it's the Archmage that says, if this terrible power had to be bestowed upon anyone, I'm glad it was you. I mean that truly. Anyone else, and I'd be inclined to raise the alarms throughout the kingdom.
Right.
You could very well be a threat to all.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's this very real threat of Wesson becoming like the next, Darth Vader, the next, like,
Mhm.
Dark Lord kind of person, because like, he could take out Roan at any of the points throughout this book. He could have easily just demolished Roan.
Mhm.
And he's like the battle master. So it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So I feel like some of that is warranted, but then, yeah, of course, you do have scenes where it's like, Wesson, just give a little,
Yeah,
just
right.
give a little. So I definitely get that.
But I think that's just part of his character, whereas other people's inclination is to say, hey, just compromise, but he knows, it's like, I don't know if I can, like, it's,
Yeah.
my power's too great. So I understand it, but part of me was like, come on, Wesson. But
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that's why it is who he is as a character, but
Yeah.
and his remorse for killing, that was, I mean, it really stuck with him for years and years and years. And that was kind of interesting to me, compared to someone like Reskin, who has literally killed hundreds of people without remorse, right? Just for
Yeah.
necessity. Whereas, Wesson kills 3 thugs and is torn up about it for years and years and years. But
Yeah.
um,
Did you guys think that scene of him coming into his powers was going to be even more explosive?
well, so from the series, I don't think it was. I don't know if this is just me. I thought we all thought that he was the one that killed his dad accidentally, but we find out in this book that
Ooh.
he didn't actually. It was some other mage sent by Berengesh, right? Did you
Yeah.
guys all think that, or was that just me? I thought.
Honestly, I don't remember if I did or not.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
think
sure.
I don't think I've ever thought about. Oh man, that's a really interesting theory though.
Well,
But
yeah, I thought we were gonna find out that how he accidentally killed his dad in this book, because in the series he talks about being driven from his hometown for an accident, and then he talks about how his dad was accidentally killed in a quarry or something, but that doesn't really say
Oh.
more.
yeah,
Yeah,
man,
so-
I
can
never
see how
thought about
could
that.
connect. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool though. But
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of thought that scene, I thought it was just going to be more explosive. I thought that he like burned down his entire village or something and
Mhm.
like wiped everybody out. And so I think it kind of says, maybe even more about his character to see his remorse from just killing, the few thugs that he
Yeah.
did or whatever,
Yeah.
and the bully or whatever.
And exploding a lamb,
And exploding a lamb. Oh my God.
which
Yeah, that
was hilarious. I mean, I could just totally see that happening.
Oh, for sure. And it was so expected. The second
I
that he
know.
laid his
touched
hands
it.
on there to
I
heal,
know.
I was
I was like,
this is
no.
gonna be fucked. Yeah.
Oh, I think
Oh.
Chris even sent a message in the group chat. He's like, did you guys laugh when the lamb exploded? I'm like, I know we probably weren't supposed to, but yeah, dude, I laughed my
Yeah.
ass off when that thing
We'll have to
exploded.
ask Kel Cabe. I'm convinced she
Yeah.
meant to make that funny, like for
Yeah,
the
it's
reader,
gotta be.
not for
Yeah.
not for Wesson,
Not for Wesson,
but for the reader. You mean you could just picture it's just
yeah. And it's funny how like from that point on things just get worse and worse and worse. Like this character just goes through shit over and over and over, and until damn near the end, and
Yes.
he's just getting shit on the whole
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And then he finally meets Reskin and things start to look up a little bit, but yeah.
Like the poor guy can't catch a break. Like in the beginning where he knocks into the cook and like spills a whole
Oh yeah,
pitcher of juice, knocks over the
Yeah.
biscuits. She's like, well, there's your breakfast. He picks up like soggy biscuits from the floor soaked in juice. It's like,
Yeah.
and then like trips outside and then loses those biscuits on the ground. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's like this very like kind of like ditzy, klutzy character.
Clumsy,
almost like
yeah.
slapstick kind
yeah,
of.
exactly. Yeah.
And even like him getting washed away in the river and then his clothes getting stolen, then he finds clothes and he pulls it off the line real quick. It's a dress.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I laughed so hard when he's like, oh, it's a women's like night shirt or undergarment or something.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. So Chris, you were mentioning you had this theory about Wesson killing his dad, but we actually find out that it was some mage named Ermelda.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was kind of disappointed with this. I thought that there was going to be a bigger mystery surrounding his father's death and like this big reveal later on. I didn't think about Wesson killing his father, but I definitely thought that it was going to be some big like conspiracy or something, and it looks like it is, but we
I was
just
gonna
don't.
say, yeah, it is definitely, and there's a huge mystery around it, but they didn't give us any meat or any like
Yeah, I
details.
felt kind of underwhelmed when in like one sentence we were just told that it was a mage named Ermelda, and that's all we got.
And she died doing it. So it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Guess that's it.
Yeah. I was kind of like, okay, I guess. And it happened like really soon, like near the beginning of
Yeah.
the book. And I was kind of like, okay, I was kind of expecting a little bit of a bigger reveal there.
Yeah, 'cause I could have seen like if Wesson figured that out and she was still alive, like I could have him like, his motivation to do all this was to like find her or something and like figure out what happened.
Yeah, that would have been interesting if he was trying to track down his father's killer or something.
And I'd like to know why his father had the vessel in the first place, but
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely like why him? Like why not
Yeah, and
a
it
million
sounds
other
like
people?
and it sounds like that he was like almost maybe entrusted to like protect this vessel or something, like it was
Yeah,
maybe passed down or one of his, or Bordrin was like, you have to, don't let anybody ever get this, like it needs to be protected or whatever else, but.
for sure. All right, let's talk about Equestrius, because I really like this character. What did you guys think of the mentor in this book?
solid dude.
Yeah,
Solid dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he was great. They described him, Wesson and Tika described him as harsh, but he was fair, I thought.
Yeah, harsh but fair.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of like everything you'd want in a teacher, right?
In a grizzled old teacher.
Yeah, and he's knowledgeable, intelligent, and wise, right? Just experience and yeah, just someone that you can look up to and can trust their decisions.
Yeah.
And he has a slight sense of humor.
Yeah.
Right? It's the rare joke, but
the rare joke.
For sure.
Happens. Yeah.
They always landed well when he did it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of this, ditto what Chris said. I think it was cool to see him kind of turn into this father figure, not quite maybe
Yeah.
forms to that. But I think he cared a lot about Wesson, especially the more that he got to know and understand like his power and his motivations. And also the fact that like he was willing to like set aside what he thinks needs to happen. He was pushy, but he was like, no, like you do what you need to do and I'll support it like regardless of the outcome type thing, which I think is really cool. Like in a teacher, somebody that actually really truly gives an honest shit about, this character. And so, yeah, I liked him a lot.
Yeah, definitely what Gabe said is my same sentiments. I think that he kind of had this idea in mind for Wesson, like, oh yeah, you would go to the Battle Mage Academy or whatever. But then you kind of learn that he's one of the people that is not too fond of KDN, as well as Kessa is, Reader Kessa.
Yeah.
And he knows that if Wesson goes to the Battle Mage Academy, then he may be called upon by KDN, especially if they find out how powerful Wesson is. KDN is definitely going to want to use Wesson. And so I just loved how supportive he was by the end of the book. And he even says, like, I think of you as a son.
Yeah.
And I just love the moment between the two of them.
Yeah.
There's this thing that's said about him near the middle of the book where somebody says Equestrius was a war hero and that he earned the king's honor, whatever that means. And then he didn't want to teach at the academy. And so then the question is kind of asked, like, why did he take on a bunch of strays? Like, why does he take all these people or all these kids into his tutelage, into his tower? And I think that he just has a good heart underneath it all. I think that he, sees these kids coming into their powers who maybe can't afford a proper education, and that he sees these kids who need to learn how to control their magic. and is just like, you know what, I'll take them on. I'll show them how to do things in a safe environment. And so I really love that about Equestrius. All right, so we kind of talked about Tika a little bit. I really loved this character. I feel like he was like the insert best friend character in the story.
Yeah.
And like he didn't have any like standout characteristics other than just being like a really good friend. But I thought he was written really well. I thought all his dialogue was really fantastic. Again, nothing really stuck out to me, but I really enjoyed him as a character.
I liked the accent that Nick Podell gave him.
Yeah, did you notice it's the same accent as Stryker? Is it Rourke? Stryker?
The one that sounds like a little bit Australian.
Australian, yeah. Is like the same voice.
Yeah.
Which is probably smart that he used a voice that he had already done in the other books, because like knowing that character dies, he knows that they'll never be in the same room having the same voice
for sure. Yeah.
In future books.
Yeah.
So that was probably a smart move. What'd you guys think of Lizka? Lizka was interesting.
Equestrius's daughter, right?
So is that his daughter?
Yeah, it is.
It is? Oh,
Yep.
okay. I didn't
It's
even
his
know.
daughter.
Yeah.
She kind of flew under my radar, I think.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, as you say, there weren't too many interactions with her. Like at Master Equestrius's estate, like she kind of says that she's gonna work with Wesson.
And like she's like, I'm gonna fuck with your brain and like figure out what I can change.
Right. And then I mean, does she ever do that?
No, yeah, we don't hear another thing about it. It just
I don't know.
Just does that, and then it's the next thing, and then the really other time, like, she shows up with
Berengish.
Berengish, and she's his, I guess he's her tutor.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with that. I think that's gonna cause shitty situations between Wesson and her later, because Wesson is already somewhat of aware that like we shouldn't trust Berengish, right? Like he's sketchy and whatnot. And she's the kind of person that's like, fuck, I don't even care. Like he's like a master mage. Like all I want to do is become a better mage. I don't care about any of the politics, any of that stuff. And so I bet you there'll be some controlling situations where Berengish, tries to get her to do shit. Just, I don't know, but
I think Tika even says like, because doesn't Wesson say?
So he says something. He's like, we shouldn't, we should stay away from him, and we should get her to stay away from him too, because like fat chance of that, like she's got like, it's something along those lines.
He's like, if Berengish asked her to like, do whatever, like if she was supposed to become a battle mage for KD, and she'd be all for it as long as she was gaining more power. And she's kind of the opposite of Wesson, where Wesson's like, I have all this power and I'm trying to not have it. And she's like, I don't have any power and I'm trying to gain as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so she's a pretty scary character. Like Wesson,
for sure.
Wesson is scary in the way that he has all this power and it can kind of, explode at any time. But she's like actively seeking to gain more and more power.
Like very motivated to better her strengths.
Right.
Which can, that's sometimes a scary quality in and of itself, especially when she's kind of on the razor's edge of like maybe like bad, not on purpose, but like doing things that are bad just because like, I want more.
Really?
Exactly.
I don't feel like got that at all from her. I mean, she's ambitious, but it's like she's young and ambitious and a mage, right? She's willing to play the politics to get ahead.
For sure.
Get the sense that she was like,
straddling
the line between good and evil, right? I mean,
well, here's the thing though, is
that's not what go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that she is Berengish's apprentice, and he is the king's, archmage or
he's
whatever.
like the top mage,
right?
Like
right,
super
high.
And so she would be willing to do, like if Berengish came to her and made up the story of like, like Wesson's got this thing and it's bad, like she wouldn't buy and she'd say, all right, how do we stop him? Like what do
Yeah.
I need to do? Like, I'll do whatever you say.
But
I don't think she's bad per se, but I think she would be willing to follow orders that could be bad.
Yes, I'll agree with that. But it's like at this point, no one knows that Barangesh is a
True,
bad
that's
guy,
true.
right?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
no one knows.
That's
Like
just
Well,
having,
we know.
having your right, but she doesn't. So that's not.
so you're right. So she could find out that he's a bad dude and then be like, oh no, I'm out of here. Like, I don't
But-
want to mess with that.
But
I mean-
that's the thing. Tika even says, like, we could tell her right now that Baringish is like, the worst thing possible, and she wouldn't care as long as it helped her get ahead.
Yeah.
And I think
Again, that's ambition. That's true. He does say that. He said we could provide her with evidence, like irrefutable evidence that's true. That is a point.
so. I think she has the inclination to be a big antagonist,
To do whatever it takes to
do whatever it takes. That's
to get
bottom
ahead.
line. Yeah.
That makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
And speaking of Baringish, I don't have much on him because we don't really
I
get
don't
a
either.
whole lot of
Yeah,
him.
I don't either.
But
This
yeah,
is
go
where
ahead.
I was gonna say I wish this is where I had reread the fourth book or something, because he's mentioned in the fourth book for the first time, I think, right?
yeah, but the
um,
only thing that's said about him is that he was just one of the three that
That's
like,
it. Okay.
it didn't even say where he went. Like, it just said that
He disappeared.
He disappeared. He
Yeah.
left, and then we find out in this book that he went to Kadian, and he was Kadian's instructor or whatever.
Were you guys when Baringish and Liska approach Wesson and Baringish is like he's like, oh, I'm always down to help new mages and powerful mages and this and that. And he gets to the point where it's like, could it be an item?
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, how did he not like put that together? Because he never mentions, oh, he's talking about the one thing that I haven't knows about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, come on, Wesson.
I know.
obvious.
I was laughing a little bit at that.
Yeah,
part.
me
Yeah.
too.
For sure.
I do
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, so he's in search of this thing. He's in search of this this vessel. We have no idea what it does or what it is.
Yeah.
We're guessing that it contained, some sort of entity, some sort of demon.
Extremely powerful entity. And I mean, that's like Bringish just like end all be all. Like
Right.
that's the only thing that he's doing. He's not doing anything to help anybody. Like he is just working towards finding that thing, no matter
Yeah.
the route that he needs to take.
And the other thing that was interesting, did you guys notice that there was a distinction made at some point where it's I think it might have even been in the prologue or something, where it talks about J.R. Dune and Pater being Sen Goka
Yeah.
and Baringish being Sen.
Sen. Yeah.
And so I wonder what that distinction means. I don't think that that's anything that was explained in book 4. The only thing we heard about was Sengoka.
So my thoughts would be like, I'm sure that this probably like, the base, whatever that is, maybe a mage thing. And then Goka would maybe be like specializing in resurrecting dead people, like just straight up
Oh,
that. And that's just my thought. That's what makes sense to me. in
So
my
we
head.
don't know at all though, because that also.
But we don't
confused me.
know.
It's
Yeah, we
confusing.
don't
I was
know.
like, what's the difference? Okay.
We don't know.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we get, so this is the one I'm not most interested to talk about, but this is the one that I'm most interested to hear your opinions on. What did you think of De Vasquez as a like main antagonist for the book? Like, what did you guys feel about this guy?
I thought that he was a great antagonist. He was somebody that was paid to do this job about this kid, and quickly this becomes way more than just getting paid. Right? This guy gets this vendetta against Wesson himself. Like, it doesn't even give a shit about the money. Like, he wants to kill this kid. And so kind of watching like him start to realize the status that Wesson not holds, but like just the status of his power and how powerful he is was really kind of enticing, because then you're like, oh man, he's realizing like, this guy's no joke. He's gonna have to really think of something to like pull this off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it.
Chris?
Yeah, he was not my favorite character or villain. I I don't think he was super memorable. He was, I guess it was kind of neat that he was an assassin of the Black Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool when he went back to the actual tower, right? That was kind of because it reminded me of
Oh
the time
yeah.
Reskin fought his
Yeah.
way through the Black Hall.
And then, so the leader of the Black Hall, same guy that Reskin deposed when he went there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the same guy.
Okay.
Yeah. But can I say this? I kind of thought he was like a forgettable sort of villain. Like he's just like
I felt similar. Yeah.
he's like a minor villain that
Yeah.
the protagonist has to overcome. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
I-
I mean, he had some funny moments, like,
Yeah.
but he was also just kind of like, yo, bro, you got your ego hurt by a child. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
get over it, man. Like,
I know. Yeah. I think that I think that he was kind of one note just because the story, like I almost feel like he was kind of a B or C plot of the story. Like I feel like the majority of the story was more about Wesson coming into his powers and becoming the person that he needed to become to meet Reskin in the second book. And maybe Kelkay just kind of needed some sort of adversary for him throughout the book to like kind of poke and prod him and to kind of turn
right,
him
yeah,
into this thing that he becomes. And there had to be some sort of reason why there was this big, battle at the end of the book. But I think that Roan would have been a way better adversary for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how she would have pulled. I feel like that, like killing Roan would have had major consequences that would go into the next books, and we'd probably have a little bit of a different story if that were the case. But I feel like De Vasquez was like I enjoyed him. I thought all his scenes were fine. He was funny and his dialogue was good. But just him as a character, I feel like he was just there to kind of be this, antagonist to Wesson, which is fine. I think that's okay. But I did the one choice I thought was really weird was where he gets told, like, this is a professional assassin that all they care about should be getting paid. That's the only thing they should be caring
Yes,
about,
Yeah.
right?
yes.
And
This
so
motherfucker.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so
for real.
why when the contract gets dropped, they're like, okay, we've employed you for like 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, just take the money, and that's more than a lot of your assassin friends have gotten paid for one gig, right? And so, but then he's got like this personal vendetta. It's like, why? Like, why does he have like this personal vendetta against Wesson? Because the assassins of the Black Hall are supposed to be like totally detached from the people they're killing. Like, it's just a job to them.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was kind of weird when, he gets told that he's not going to be doing this job anymore. And he's like, well, I'm just going to kill him myself because I want to kill him. It's like, why? Like,
Yeah.
what does that gain you?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that could have been built up a little bit more in the earlier part of the books, like showing us that he has this side of like, this isn't just a job to him, that he like enjoys killing, and that he's like, he has to kill to like, get off on it or whatever. But I felt like for most of the story, he was just like an assassin of the Black Hall, like a job is a job. And then near the end, he's kind of got this thing where he's like, oh, I gotta kill him. I just thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, he definitely came across as more of like a thug than like assassin of the Black Hall. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Because is who's the other character in the series that's from the Black Hall?
Oh, the Rosh something. He was like
The
Zaw?
leader.
Za.
Zaw
Oh
from the
yeah,
Black
Za.
Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, in a way, he's similar to Reskin and just like his reserved nature and
Yeah.
his sort of disassociation or with or non-attachment to killing, right? It's just sort of
Right. It's just a
something
thing he has
does,
to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this guy, he just felt kind of like a common thug that was like, is quick to anger, right? Like,
Yeah.
and has an easily bruised ego, which I was like, are those qualities that let you survive the black hole?
No.
You know, it's like,
Right.
I mean, I guess not, because he's dead. Spoiler alert. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I did love when he was on the wagon with the family, and he says, they're like, what do we call you? He's like, they call me Big D.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what
Big
the fuck,
D.
dude? Big D? They call me Big D.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
I'm like, that I did not expect a dick joke
That
in
was-
the Mage of No Renown.
That was funny. Yeah, I did like that part where he's just like grimacing at the couple's like back and forth, overly sentimental, like, you
Yeah.
know, like the I was like,
Yeah.
And,
And
then he's like, oh yeah, I'll get the wife to sleep with me later.
I
or
know,
Yeah,
whatever
he's
else.
like, "Oh, fuck
dick,
yeah,
man."
dude,
like,
I know.
oh shit.
we need to know, did it happen? Was it
Yeah.
I
success?
know they never said it. All right, moving on. The only thing I have about Roan is that I felt like Roan was a great antagonist. I
Yeah.
thought that he had a lot of like as misguided and bad as it was, I felt like he had a lot of reason for doing what he did.
Oh yeah.
Like his motivations made sense in a very kind of authoritarian, like evil kind of way. And I would be extremely surprised if he was not back in a future book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was the real Big D of this
Yeah.
book.
He was the
Yeah.
real Big D. Yeah.
One thing about Roan is what the hell is he doing during the main series?
Training battle mages.
Yeah, training battle mages.
Yeah, but KD goes to war at some point, right?
oh yeah, so
That's
he's
a good
got to be
point.
in
Yeah,
there
he's
somewhere.
gotta be out there.
So I'm like, well, is
Yeah.
he not fucking shit up in there somewhere? I mean,
Yeah, I
there's
bet he
probably
is.
bound to be a big confrontation at some point.
Yeah, that'll be
So-
cool. All right, so moving on, we got to wrap this up soon. Favorite, I only have a couple quotes. I didn't write down too many. You guys know me. Normally I write down like 25.
Too many.
But I have 3, it looks like, and I
Oh,
think
thank God.
one of them I already read.
Okay.
So this one I thought was cool, and I only noticed this the second time around. I was like, oh, that's why the book is called Mage of No Renown. And the first quote is, I think it's Equestrius talking to Wesson. I forgot to write down who is talking to who.
It is. It's Master Equestrius to Wesson
and
in the very last chapter.
Yeah. And he says, are you sure this is the path you want? You will never know riches or renown. And Wesson says, perhaps not, but I will know my soul.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nice. Like,
Yeah, dude.
you know, it's a good final quote for like I think that was like the last line in the like actual final chapter.
Yeah.
And I like that. I thought that was cool. I thought that fit his character really well. And just this whole idea of, you know, because I didn't really know what the title was referring to. I knew it was referring to Wesson, but I'm like, why is he the Mage of No Renown? And then seeing everybody offer him so much like power and status and everything, and then he just like turns it down for this life on the road. And then later a life with Rezkin and his kind of rebellion. It's like, yeah, he's definitely the Mage of No Renown. And then the quote that made me kind of squeal like a schoolgirl a little bit is just like so much like foreshadowing. And even now after the 4th book, we don't really know like what exactly is going to happen, but we know that Wesson is going to get to a point where he realizes that there are things worth fighting for. That's the vibe that I've gotten all throughout the series. I've always felt like Wesson is going to get to a point where he either has somebody that's worth protecting, maybe the girl that just fucking married him from that female island or whatever that was.
That's right. Lon Laresh.
Lon Laresh. Wow, good callback.
Yeah,
I didn't even
Thanks.
remember. But reader, I think it's the Archmage actually, and she says,
it is.
there are things in this world worth fighting for, and one day you will find them. And this is kind of in the middle of a whole bunch of other really cool stuff that she said that I really should have written down. That whole scene, that whole final scene with him and the Archmage was really, really good. But just this simple quote, like, there are things in this world worth fighting for, and one day you will find them. I feel like that's just such a good, like, send off to Wesson. Like, go find the things that you want to fight for. Go find the things that matter to you, the things that are going to drive you, the things that you're going to want to protect. Figure out, like, it's just very coming of age. Like, go out into the world and find the things that are, you know, worth living life to you. Like, find the things that matter. And I just love that whole scene. I thought that was great.
Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah. And then of course, Wesson buying the books at the beginning of the book. Buying the books at the beginning of the book. He says, or kind of in the narration inner monologue thing, it was like, as much as he hated to admit it, he could think of absolutely no circumstance of which he'd need to know anything about the mysterious Shadow Knight.
Oh, I loved that too. Yeah, that was so funny.
Such a great quote.
And he didn't end up buying it, right? He bought the other two books, one of which was like the political maneuverings of women sewing circles.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it, dude. That's it.
That was so
like, wow.
great.
Enthralling read. That'll be good.
That'll be great.
I know. I'm like,
learn
dude,
a lot from that one.
I'm like, just spend the extra coin or two and get the awesome book.
I know.
Oh my god, if it's between like sewing circle for dummies and
sewing circle politics, like
yeah. I love that, dude. That was great.
Really funny.
All right, so we are on the home stretch here. Let's talk about some of our favorite moments. I know a lot of these we've already talked about, but let's get into some of our favorites, because there's some really good scenes in this book.
Yeah. Let me think. I think I mentioned some of my favorite scenes already with I liked when he was at the Battle Mage Academy and finally decided to flex his muscle by, you know, binding the one student and then blocking the power of those other two students.
Yes, dude, when he blocked the power of the other guy, that was awesome.
And they were naturals too. They were natural journeymen, right? Not journeyman battle mages who happen to be naturals as well. Yeah. And he just snapped his fingers for flare. It said he's like snapped his fingers, and everyone's like, "You did what happened? Nothing happened, right?" Like,
and you just hear them screaming.
And he's like, "Oh, well," he's like, "They'll find out soon enough." It's like, "Come on, let's go back to our meals." They just start walking away, and I was like, "Yes."
And then as he's walking away, he's like, "Good luck becoming battle mages."
Yes, right. Like, bye. Like, good luck. Yeah, they start freaking out. Yeah. That was a good scene. Honestly, almost all the scenes with Master Equestrius, I really liked him. You know, particularly the ending was sort of tugged at the heartstrings, where he's calling Wesson family, and he's like, dude, he's like, don't let your ego get in the way of asking for help. Like, I'll be here if you need me. And I was just Dad, it's good guy. That's why I said solid dude.
Solid dude.
Daddy Equestrius.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, that's.
Can we talk about this prophetic dream he had?
Sure.
Dude, holy shit. I was, dude, yeah.
People who listen to the audiobook will get that.
Yeah, exactly. I listened to this scene over and over and over, and I don't even know how to begin breaking it down. He has this dream where he's on the other side of a river or something from the city that is burning to the ground, and there's this raven up above, and the raven is cawing and everything, and I think Wesson says later it almost seemed like the raven was trying to give him like a call to action on some level or something. So he's watching this city like burn down. There's this raven. He looks across the water. He's never seen the ocean before, and he sees like the ocean for the first time. and there's this I guess land or island across the way of all these like towering trees, and then this palace in the middle of it. He says, I can't remember, I think he says palaces or like towers or something.
Yeah.
And the raven flies over this, and it's all under the shadow of the raven, and all the towers come crumbling down. And so I wonder if this is meant to be a prophecy of everything that happens in book 4 of Rezkin just taking over every single kingdom and them all just kind of falling beneath the shadow of the raven.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. I did not, because he's the Raven, right?
Yeah.
So
I really don't want to believe that he's gonna destroy every city though. Like,
so
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I think that the fire on the one side, all like the town burning down, I think that might be KDN's doing.
yeah.
And then on the other side, with all the palaces kind of crumbling down, I think that is Rezkin's doing. But I don't think it's a metaphor for he will destroy these kingdoms, but I think it's a metaphor for all of these kingdoms will fall beneath the shadow of the raven.
Oh,
Like he is
Yeah.
the emperor of all these
Yeah,
kingdoms.
that makes sense.
That's kind of the vibe that I got.
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, that. But I mean, yeah. Again, the kind of apocalyptic nature of the.
Yeah, it
That-
could
that
go
makes-
either way.
Yeah, I was thinking more like along the lines of demon invasion, right? Like
Yeah,
the demons ravaging Ashai, but I don't know. It's that raven symbolism is too strong there. Now that you point that out, that
Yeah.
Rezkin is the raven too. That's
And especially, I wonder if there was any like alarm bells going off in Wesson's head in the 4th book when Wesson learns that Rezkin is the Raven.
Right.
Because, and here's the other weird thing, you would think that would be a big moment for Wesson, be like, oh my God, he's the Raven from my dreams. But he has like no reaction to it. Matter of fact, that's when he does his really great monologue of, I never had any expectations for Rezkin. Everything I learn about him is, never really shocking to me because I never have these pre-made assumptions about him. And so that was another part of it that really made me think, like, before I had gotten to the end of Mage of No Renown, I had really assumed that he was going to know about Rezkin and know that he's like all of these things.
Yeah,
that's why nothing was shocking him. But alas,
yeah.
The other interesting thing that I had here was so when Wesson meets that mage at the beginning, he learns about Vimara, and the mage says that Vimara is only wielded by humans, that members of the Fae, the old elfin society, like demons, like none of them use Vimara. They use magic in a different way.
Right.
And so, at the end of the book, Wesson mentions that Rezkin definitely has some sort of magical talent.
and he says like a lot. He says that he specific, like I can't remember the way he says it, but he's like
no small amount.
No small amount. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, so Rezkin is obviously able to use magic in some way, but I wonder if he has like elfin blood or if he has Fae blood. Or even demonic blood somehow. Yeah. I wonder if he is accessing magical talent outside of the use of Vimara, because Wesson, even just reading the 2nd book, Wesson wasn't able to detect any Vimara in Rezkin. And so I wonder if Rezkin has some sort of loophole in order to use magic. Yeah, we talked about most of these. Let me see if you guys have any. Let me know.
Yeah, there's the scene in the academy with, they just get there and Equestrius is like, you're gonna go to some of these classes, and he said, he sets a limitation on Tika. He's like, Tika only casts under the supervision of somebody, and then he's like, Wesson, don't cast like at all.
Yeah.
Wesson's like, okay, and they go up to this class where they're trying to make make an elemental figure of like a different element. So like, one made out of fire or some shit or whatever like that.
Right.
And the teacher there, cocky asshole that he is, he's like, Wesson, you're in my class. You do as I say, cast the spell. And Wesson's like, oh my God, it's gonna be bad. And he casts it and he just makes this like brilliant dragon, dude, that like
Yeah.
is massive. And it's like testing all the wards, and all these wards flare and like alarms are going off and whatnot. So that was cool. And then the teamwork that like I see, it says here, like a student rested in a rock and then Tika floods water into the before it closes, like ground,
Yeah.
which is badass. My favorite part is when Equestrius like comes in and he's like yelling,
Yeah.
what did I tell you? Like not to cast. And Tika's like, the teacher like told him he needed to do it if he went in his class. And then Equestrius like turns to this teacher and just puts him in his place.
Yeah.
Like if this happens again, I'll show you why I am the rank master or whatever else. And I was
Yeah.
like, dude, that was so sick.
He's like, don't you dare ever threaten one of my apprentices. I'm like,
I was like,
yes,
badass,
let's
dude.
go.
Daddy Equestrius.
Daddy Equestrius. I loved the fire baseball when Wesson
yeah.
and Tika are playing baseball out in the yard, and Tika's wrapped this baseball bat like in a ward, and he hits the baseball and it goes through a window.
Yeah.
And they go inside, and Daddy Equestrius is like holding the fireball like a enraged parent, like a baseball just went through his window. I just thought that was such an awesome I don't even know what to call that. Like, it's such a classic thing that you would see in a movie where the kid hits the baseball through the window and the parent is inside like holding the baseball.
Yeah.
But it's like this totally like ridiculous situation where it's like a fireball and it's all magic. Like,
well, and the whole glen outside was, or the briar was like on fire again. Like they caught everything on fire again.
The Bailey
For like the third time or something.
Exactly.
The Bailey. Yeah, exactly.
The Bailey. The other one I have here is when Wesson helps the wrecked ship.
Oh yeah, that was show of power, dude.
Dude, that was sick. The ship is basically like grounded, and for some reason, this is another weird thing about Davascus. He's like, if you let them all die, I'll never bother you again.
Ego, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wesson's like, he's like, I can't do that. And so he uses wards. He wraps the ship in a ward to repel water. And then he's holding up like this wall of water, like this massive barrier of water. And people are able to get out of the ship. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Let's get to the end here. The fight with the assassin. What did you guys think of this whole altercation before Wesson blows everything up? Like everything the assassin was doing to thwart Wesson and everything. What'd you guys think of this?
I mean, I thought it was clever, mostly in the use of these enchanted items, such as the thwart, and then, basically just an introduction to like, there are like items that can hold a ward or whatever else that like we kind of learn about. So that was cool. I thought that it was like before, Wesson goes nuts. That was the cool part. But I was just like, I was hoping for like a little more like
back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth, exactly. And more of that. It was still a cool battle, but I felt like it was just like a touch boring at the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess before Wesson goes nuclear, I think Wesson going nuclear was the coolest part.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, the fight was okay. I mean, I don't know, I guess the sort of the execution of his plan was, the assassin's plan was a little confusing because, he talks about, oh, I should have thought of this before and taken Dia earlier. And then he's like, oh, but then I'd have to feed her for a week or for a month or something.
Yeah.
If I kidnapped her earlier. But then in the end, it sounds like he just straight up lied to Wesson and didn't actually kidnap
didn't even
Dia.
go
like,
for her.
why would you just do that at the beginning? I don't know. It was
Yeah,
kind of weird, right? I was like,
for sure.
Wait, did he say that about Dia? Like I should have kidnapped her and fed her for, then I'd have to feed her for a month?
well, yeah. So he does. He intercepts Weston's letter or whatever. And then he's like, I should have thought of this earlier.
And
he's
this was like an inner monologue for him, right? Like
Mhm.
this was something he was
Yep.
talking to himself about.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
yeah.
Because I don't think I don't remember him actually intercepting the letter. I think
Well,
I totally missed
that was off the page.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
It's
So
just
they
it's
didn't
just
say
like
that.
it's like implied because
Oh,
how else
okay.
would you know, right?
Yep.
And so it's like he specifically mentions like, oh well, if I'd kidnapped her a month, if I kidnapped her earlier, I'd have to feed her for months while I waited for Wesson
Yeah.
to return from wherever. So
Yeah.
and I was like, but then he didn't actually kidnap her, or
Yeah.
again,
That's
I
weird.
thought that whole thing was gonna be like he just told Wesson that he had Dia, but it turns out Dia's been dead for like years or something. Like she
Right.
died of disease or something when she was younger or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I guess maybe I don't know.
I like
Where's Dia?
yeah,
Yeah.
where in the world is Dia?
Mhm.
I like the whole altercation before Wesson goes nuclear. I thought that we got a lot of kind of magic lingo thrown at us really fast.
Yeah.
And I definitely rewound a couple times to be like, what is a Vim buffer? Like I had to
Yeah.
like go back and kind of deconstruct what all these
Yeah.
things were. But knowing what they are, I really liked he sets up this barrier using a thwart, which negates the magic inside it or around it or whatever nearby. But if he does that, then it's also negating his magic, so he can't cast magic. So he has to use this thing called a Vim buffer to negate the thwart in a nearby area around him. So it's kind of like it was complicated at first for sure,
Yeah.
but I like the idea that like the thwart affects him too. It's not just something that's like affecting Wesson and he's tossing,
Yeah.
fireballs or lightning at Wesson while he's helpless. And so I like the idea of the Vim buffer and how they had to take out the thwart, and then the Vim buffer is pretty much useless. But also because of where he's standing, that part of the barrier is like dimmed or like not existent. And so they're like, oh, it's over there. And they're able to
Yeah.
like find it. And so I guarantee that those two things will come into play
Oh,
later in the
sure.
series, both thwarts and Vim buffers. So those are probably two good things to
It won't affect Reskin though.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
that'll
He'll
be
just walk right
interesting.
through
Yeah,
him.
for sure. And then what'd you guys think of Tika dying? Did you guys feel anything?
I saw it coming, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it coming and it was sad. I just felt
Yeah.
sad for Wesson, but I feel like that was probably a at least partially a turning point in his mentality and kind of how he thinks
Yeah.
about, things are a lot darker than, I think he sees them sometimes, and the world's like a place and bad stuff happens, which hopefully will then kick butt to like, and that like, regardless of if he doesn't want to, like he's gonna have to use this power to protect
Right.
people and whatever.
well, I was just gonna say it was kind of his death seemed kind of inevitable, but
Yeah.
I still felt sad. I liked him as a character, but
Yeah.
kind of shows Weston that I mean, he could have prevented it, right?
Right. Yeah, I think I definitely saw it coming a mile away because I was like, he's never talked about in the later books or anything. So I was pretty sure that he was gonna die near the end. I didn't really like feel that sad when he died, but I was definitely like sad for Wesson because this is like the one friend, the one true friend that he really has.
Yeah.
So and then Wesson goes nuclear and he literally rips up the ground. I love the description.
Yeah.
He rips up the ground like a carpet, and the only thing left underneath is bedrock. And he just covers the assassin in rocks and just crushes him. And that was fantastic. Like him going back to the academy, like kind of with his head down, and like even like seeing the tower and like, did I do that? And like the Glade guy that met him at the front was like, we think so.
Yeah.
Like nobody really knows what happened. And kind of the whole thing with Roan like demanding that he stay at the academy, and Wes is like, you can't make me do anything. Like
Right.
I am leaving.
That whole scene where like he counter challenges Roan was really cool because like Roan's like, you know, by my order as master, like I order you," and he's like, no, like I'm not, and if you know KD or whatever doesn't like that, like they're gonna come after me and I'm gonna fight back. Like I did this in a second without even thinking about what do you think I can do when I have time
Yeah,
to hurt you. It's like, yeah.
for real. Yeah, I loved that whole altercation. And then of course he opens the box, the glyphs are on it. We already talked about all that. Equestrius thinks of him as a son. And then there's I was gonna play the last note to Dia. Unless you guys really want to hear it, I'll just skip it.
I mean, I don't care either way. I would say I just listened to it like 2 hours ago, so.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was a good final note to Dia. Again,
Definitely.
it is kind of like why is he still writing to this girl after all this time? But
Yeah.
I feel like those letters were more for us to kind of get like, because usually they come into play after there's like a time skip, after it's been like a year or two, and it's kind of him just kind of rehashing like what's been going on over the past year, where his head's at and stuff.
Right.
And I really liked the for me to be known is for me to be feared. Yeah, I think, you know, if people really knew what he could do, if there were more people who were aware of who he is, like there would probably be a witch hunt. You know?
For sure. Yeah.
And then from there, we go into the epilogue. This is 5 months after the events of him going nuclear. And God, we get Rezkin and the whole group. And this is what ignited my, like, I have to read the second book right now. I loved this so much when Rezkin was back on the page and seeing everything from Wesson's point of view. That whole scene was just fantastic. I wish we had gone a little bit further somehow. I don't know how she would have done this, but I was expecting us to maybe as like a frame narrative or something, when Wesson goes away with Tam in the second book, because Tam is all upset about finding out about Rezkin and who he is and everything. And people are like, well, Tam is probably just upset at Rezkin because he had to kill somebody recently, and he's kind of putting that onto Rezkin. And Wesson's like, I could talk to him. I know a little bit about that. And we see Wesson take Tam aside, but we never see that conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
And I assumed that was going to be in this book. I really wanted to see that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really bummed that wasn't like a frame narrative or something. Like the prologue was Wesson and Tam going off, and Wesson's like, let me tell you what's happened to me the past few years. And then we go into this whole story.
Yeah.
And the whole story would be like him talking to Tam. I think that would have been a really great frame narrative, but yeah. But it was great to get the scene we did with Sheila the donkey. And
that was funny. Yeah.
And then Rezkin,
well, sorry, not the the reference to Sheila.
We got
yeah. And then this is when Wesson notes that Rezkin has some sort of magical ability, some like no small amount of magical ability. And then they go to the inn, and Wesson is about to leave, but Rezkin is like, you know, I want to hire you, and I'll pay for your room and board and stuff. And the last lines of the book, the very final lines are, I don't know if I can even do what you require of me. And Rezkin says, oh, I'm quite certain you will suffice.
Yeah.
And I just loved leaving it on that. I was like, let's fucking go. Like knowing what happens in the next few books, I was just like, yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good ending. Good last sentence.
So wrapping it up here, I'm not going to go through all these. Do you guys have any theories for the future? I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but talking through it now, do you guys have anything that you're eager to see in KDT 5 that relates to this book, or anything, any theories on things that we saw from this? We talked about the demon being in the pot and possibly possessing Wesson or having some effect on him in some way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the only one that my mind has been working on. As far as theories go, of course, the prophecy, like, interesting to see when and where that lines up, or if it ever does, we don't really know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm not very good at theories. I was proud of that one that I had, though.
Yeah. Again, just kind of what we talked about already, like possible that Weston is possessed by, or at least the hosts, not possessed. Sorry, Gabe,
Yeah.
but
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all the same thing.
hosting the demon. I think that's pretty likely given his powers, and
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And then again, just what the hell is Roan doing during
Yeah.
all that?
Yeah.
Does his spell mean anything, or was that just a, what do they call that? Just a non sequitur, like just
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
will we never see that ever
Yep.
brought up again? Or
yeah.
yeah, it's hard to tell what is kind of like self-contained within this book and what's like foreshadowing for the future, because as fans of the larger series, it's really easy to be like, oh, I bet this will come back and this means this, but it's very possible that there's a lot of things in this book that are just part of this prequel story and will probably
Yeah.
never get brought up again. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what characters will come back. I definitely think Lizka and Roan will be coming back. I would bet that at some poignant moment, Equestrius will die and it'll, push Wesson in some way to make some sort of call to action. That's just kind of how mentors go out usually in these kind of books.
Right.
And I'm curious, do you guys think Wesson will ever be able to use other types of magic? Because to some extent in this book, it's mentioned that he's got 10% creation magic or whatever. But he's able to tap into it a little bit, but not very well, because of the destructive magic overpowering it so much. Do you guys think that he will ever be able to kind of get past that and be able to,
I think that he's gonna start, because if you remember, I don't know if this is in 2 or 3, but Reskin's talking about sickness with him. And he mentions something along the lines like, well, you use destructive magic. Why can't you go in and destroy the microorganisms that are in the body with your nose? Oh, wow, that could work. I have a feeling that like he's gonna learn that like he can do a lot more than he thinks with medicine power.
Yeah.
And he's probably also gonna expound and learn a lot more and find more, construction with deconstruction or whatever, and be able to do a lot more with that. Like I'm willing to bet that like he'll somehow heal somebody using,
Destructive magic.
Noscent power. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he can already do basic constructive spells and abilities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like he passed the apprentice test using just constructive magic, but I mean, he's never going to be a life mage, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At least in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like he probably won't be able to heal wounds and talk to animals,
Right.
And I mean, I don't know. I guess there'd have to be a pretty good reason for him to start being able to do other types of magic, because it would sort of seem like a cop out if that were true. Because
Or
it's
like a cheat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because the whole thing is, he has to learn to deal
Exactly.
with the cards
yeah.
he's been handed and
Right.
who he is. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine, like Gabe said, he'll probably come up with some creative ways to use destruction magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this one? Things you're
No,
most excited to see?
Book 5 in a couple months, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
September,
yeah, the next
baby.
one. The next one.
September. Oh my God, it's so close. I can taste it. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me for this. And thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us while we talk about Mage of No Renown. We have a couple other King's Dark Tidings videos that we'll link down below. So if you haven't seen those yet, definitely check them out. Be sure to keep an eye out for some of the more awesome videos coming out soon. Also, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I just posted a very in-depth Horizon Forbidden West review, and everybody should definitely check that out. I edited it for like 4 weeks.
It's really good. I saw a tidbit of it. It is really well done.
Dude, thank you. I put like just the footage alone, like the gameplay capture footage is like 20 hours that I edited down into like 35 minutes.
Wow.
So definitely check that out if that is something that interests you. There's no spoilers in it, but it is very, very in-depth. You can also get a heads up on what we're posting next by following us on Twitter @FilesFantasy. Also do all the YouTube things, hit the subscribe buttons and all that, and help Gabe get some much needed sunlight. And until next time, everything I touch dies or explodes.